Welcome to Be The Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Jennifer Gunsaullus. Jennifer, are you ready to talk?
Oh, I am always ready to talk, especially about sex-related topics.
Dr. Jennifer Gunsaullus, PhD, sociologist and sex coach, is a frequent speaker about couples intimacy, sexual consent, and mindful sex. She's presented 2 TEDx talks and is a writer on sex and relationships. Dr. Jenn has 1.5 million hits on her educational YouTube channel, In the Den with Dr. Jenn, YouTube video series. Dr. Jenn Gunsaullus, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Good to be here, Nathan.
Your TEDx Phoenixville talk is all about female sexual shame hurts us all. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate the nuanced way and the way that you put the urgency, the humanity and the inhumanity of female sexual shame in our world front and center while doing it in a very engaging way. So please just take us behind the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let me give you a quick summary. I have some notes here just to keep me on track. But yeah, so I'm talking about sexual empowerment and what that is. And my definition of that is, that we have recognition that we have choices and that we're able to act on them. And so sexual disempowerment is not having the ability or control to make decisions about our sexuality or our bodies, or being taught that we shouldn't or that we don't have control. And so then I use lots of examples around the world, and I was looking internationally, and I was looking at sex trafficking and female genital cutting and rape as a systematic tactic of war. But then I'm like, lest you think this happens out there, like, look at our own country, and looking at like clear cases like, a few years ago, the Steubenville, Ohio rape case, and just how it was like laughed at and brushed under the rug and it was such a clear cut rape case. And how it's just brushed under the rug and not taken seriously in our country, or women who speak out about birth control or reproductive rights are called sluts and are personally attacked. And then just something that may seem mundane, but like women faking orgasms, which happens a lot. And the theme I see in all of that, the underlying theme is shame, and shame being used to control women's bodies and minds. But then I take it to a place that I want to make it real for all audience members. And I guide them through a kind of a mindfulness visualization exercise where I really want them to sit with the feeling of shame. And that is a very visceral, uncomfortable feeling. And I guide them through a personal exercise. I have everybody close their eyes. And then I really just hit home with the impact of this internalized shame, which we carry in many ways around our sexualities and our bodies, that it hurts us all. Personally, it hurts our relationships. It hurts, all the women that have been impacted in some way. And I think, to make it contemporary, because this was probably like 4 years ago I did this talk, with the Me Too movement, we now know that pretty every woman in your life has been, sexually pushed in some way or sexually harassed in a workplace. So we know that this has a huge impact. And I use the example of Elizabeth Smart that was kidnapped back in 2002 and was, raped daily and held captive for 9 months and had a chance to escape a few times, but was taught through her religion that if you're not a virgin, you're worthless, basically. And so she didn't escape because she's like, I'm worthless anyway. And and that is the heart of sexual shame. And that how particularly many women, but many of us overall carry aspects of sexual shame. And that is not a good way to go through life. It's not a fun way. It's not a way to connect deeply, intimacy with others. And it impacts our self-esteem and just our deepest sense of self. So that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, that's a great summary. And that guided exercise when you said, have you ever been told? Imagine that you were told that you were, this, that, the other thing.
Right.
Such a powerful way for everyone in the audience as well as the online audience to be able to actually feel those feelings. And what I want to do is just bring everybody together on this podcast. You're listening to this. You may be on one side of the aisle. You might be on the other side of the aisle. You might have all kinds of different beliefs, but I want you to hear the central issue that Dr. Jenn is attacking, which we should all be against shaming other people, controlling other people in unethical ways. I'm not talking about being a parent and guiding your children, but what happens when, as a parent, we don't guide in the appropriate way. This is what happens when we don't take the leadership and step up proactively. And Dr. Jenn, I mean, I've been very aware of the horrible statistic. I think 50% of women and 30% of men have been abused. I mean, those have been, or 40%, whatever it is, they've been too high for too long, and it's been going on. But you brought up Me Too. To the extent where the systems and the power plays and the actual stories, that was the stories behind the statistics, is the disturbing thing. And really, as a man, it's like you think behind that story and you think, have I ever been in a powerful position? And have I ever said anything that I didn't think I was, not even trying to be harmful or whatever,
right,
and being taken a
right,
completely different way. And I think for all of us, it's not about being afraid of one another. It's about being able, and I think my wife would agree with this, number one, because I like to just say silly things or just go off the cuff. But if I can do something to try to be more restrained in just kind of my normal little, careful what I say, but just my little comments or just the way that is, I thought was a way that I interact. If I can take a few steps away from that line so that other people don't misunderstand and I'm not being misunderstood and I'm not anywhere close to that, and I can model safety and leadership for other people, I'm happy to do it. And maybe that's part of this podcast today. It's a little bit of new ground. And I really just appreciate the way, I know I said this before, I appreciate the way that you make this about the front and center issue. So, I know there's a backstory with this and I know that there are, powerful things that you're seeing through your advocacy as well. So I'd love for you to take this in any direction you'd like to at this point.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of directions to go with it, but I was just thinking about what you were just sharing and saying. I mean, and I think what's so missing is, and why Me Too really stands out is that as women, we hit a tipping point that all of a sudden enough voices were being heard and believed. And then, I mean, because all of us, like I said, it's like every woman I know in some way, or another, myself included, has experienced this. And then once you start reading these stories and seeing like, oh, everybody, and then you start remembering, you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's right. My first job when I was 19, totally forgot about that. Like wasn't even showing up on my radar, but it's insidious. And I think often it's not intended, right? There are malicious things out there, but it's often not intended. And what's been missing is the voice of women and women being believed. I mean, because so often, women who speak up about some injustice or something do get shamed for it or get judged for it. And so we have that voice in a new way. And so I think one of the most important things is to be like, okay, you're calling me out on something that's really uncomfortable. I didn't think I did anything wrong. I don't know what's going on, but you know what? I'm actually going to listen to you and I'm going to ask questions because I don't get your perspective. And I think what's been done overall is just that perspective is dismissed. And now if we can actually be in a state of inquiry around it, which takes a lot of humility to acknowledge that someone else's perspective is different than your own, a lot of humility to recognize that, I might have done something harmful that I didn't even know because we grew up with totally different social norms and we're in different bodies. And I don't know what it is to be a woman who can't walk at nighttime outside and has lived your whole life like that. Like that you have a fear that's built into what it is to be in a female body in a way, many men will never understand. And so, so I think this voice, this listening, and we definitely need a whole lot more compassion. And like I said, taking a humble approach to it, which is hard because, that's uncomfortable. It's vulnerable. You don't know everything.
Yeah. And part of the benefit with hearing these stories, it's not a benefit. It's it's difficult to listen to these stories, but what and I'll just put it this way, and I'm being completely subjective in the way that I'm saying this, but, maybe perhaps the way that a average, there's no such thing as an average man, but we thought maybe the line was at 8 or 9 or certainly a 10. And you hear these stories and it sounds maybe in a man's mind, oh, I thought that was maybe a 3 or a 4. I didn't even mean that to be, but it's so much more nuanced. It's so much more delicate. And then as men, speaking personally, you got that fight or flight response. So you kind of almost want to just completely run away, not deal with it. And you can do that in so many ways, especially if you have a leadership position. Yep. So I guess the question that I don't want to particularly ask, but I think that a lot of men need to hear, and I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about this, is, if you're a man and some of these you're in leadership and some of these things start surfacing, and maybe, tragically there are leaders who are right at the ends of they're about to go into their legacy and retire, and we're seeing, here in Philadelphia, won't mention, but, our favorite America's Dad, very, very, very timely. And so what do you do if, as a man, to listen and to make people feel heard and safe and be willing to do that? I know that's not enough, but is it a start, and what else can we do?
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for asking this. I got to actually give, because I travel around the country as a public speaker, around sexual topics and relationship topics and mindfulness. And I got to speak just a few weeks ago in New Orleans to a group of like high-end CEOs and presidents of companies, about 50 or 60 of them, specifically about Me Too in the workplace. And I'm like, this is, I'm not giving you the HR perspective. I'm definitely not your HR person, because I talk about lots of sex stuff that would make every HR department cringe. But I'm like, we need to be taking a much more, a compassionate and mindful approach. And that's what I use at the core of all my work. And that means asking questions. It means, what I was saying already. And I used an acronym of PAGE, P-A-G-E, of getting on the same page. One is being present. And so that's using mindfulness skills and of recognizing tone of voice, recognizing, are you towering over someone? Is someone backing away from you? Has somebody suddenly gone quiet? So really learning nuances of that. The A, oh, shoot. I haven't talked about this in a few weeks.
Well,
and I already forgot.
P was presence, right? P was being present. So we'll review, because I'm taking mental notes here. I can't write and listen and be present if I'm taking notes. So P was present.
A is ask questions.
A is ask questions. A is ask. I already
said. The G is giving generous intent. In that, because that's been going on for years, that women haven't believed, or, oh, she's just trying to work her way up, or she's trying to cause, problems and get attention. Or I will tell you, it doesn't feel good as a woman, doesn't feel good as anybody to challenge people, particularly when the backlash you're going to get. And women always get backlash on these topics. Anybody on the, even if it's a man coming forward with a sexual harassment thing, they will always get backlash. Like, that's not a fun place to be in. And then the last piece, which ties it all together, is empathy. And, and that brings in that humility and that vulnerability and that empathy piece. So, all of those, they're basic. What it comes down to is it's basic emotional intelligence skills and social intelligence skills, and the humility to practice those and realize, okay, there's things I don't know that I don't know around these. And the only way you're going to learn is by being really uncomfortable and listening and creating safe spaces for that. So
Paige, be present, ask questions, generous intent, and empathy. We've been enjoying this talk with Dr. Jennifer Gunsaullus. Her TEDx Phoenixville talk is called Female Sexual Shame Hurts Us All. And in a moment, we're going to be right back with Dr. Jennifer Gunsaullus in the Blitz Round. And we're going to pivot and talk about your talk and the mechanics behind her talk. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with the Blitz Round. It's Jennifer Gunsaullus, and our time is right now where we are going to enter the blitz round. I'm going to ask Dr. Jennifer a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent 2 TEDx talks. Are you ready, Dr. Jennifer?
Let's do this.
All right. Number 1, were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
A blender. So I rehearse it so heavily and memorize it so then it's so comfortable I can ad-lib.
And that's where the page comes in. You can be present in the moment and absolutely. And blend that. Yeah. That's a nice little blend.
Really make it real and bring my energy to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now, when you walk out there, did you have nerves or were you in the zone or neither or both?
At this point, I do so much public speaking. However, this is the TEDx thing. It was my second TEDx, but, this topic I'm so passionate about and I want the video to be impactful out there and for the audience. So yeah, I was nervous, but it lasts only about 30, 45 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I feel my legs shaking a little bit. And then because I'm so prepared, then I'm in it, Yeah.
What's a tip, a technique, or a tool that helps you prepare?
Well, I will actually say, so we're lucky at the Phoenixville one. Our MC for the event is the TED lecture finder person. Like she on the main TED thing, like this is what she does. And so she knows all the insides and out. And so she was in our green room and gave us our pep talk ahead of time. And she goes, if anything happens, if you lose your train of thought or whatever, just pause, say it. Turn if you need to, and then come back. And she goes, and we will edit it out. She goes, that happens all the time on the TED stage. And she goes, but you never know it from the videos. And that is all I needed to hear because I knew my talk so well, but it always is, what if I freeze up? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that was perfect. That was great.
Yeah, it's kind of like an open book test in that way. If you have that moment of panic, you can just stall, be mindful, be present, deep breath, get a drink of water, and start right back up, and they'll cut that stuff right out.
Right. So you don't have to worry about your 18-minute time limit. You're still under it. Yeah.
And now this is, speaking of cutting things out, this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Oh my gosh. You mean that I'd wanted to leave in,
yes.
But for time I had to cut out? I actually don't remember because this was 4 years ago. I actually don't,
But there was stuff.
I have no idea.
I bet there was stuff. All right. Is that the Ronald Reagan defense? Not to be political, but I don't remember. I don't remember.
Like I said, I do so much public speaking and so much cutting out. I'm like, that was so many talks ago. I can't remember.
All right. So it's a performance, Dr. Jenn, right? So what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened to you when you were giving your talk or right before you went on stage?
There was nothing like that, but it was neat for me. Oh, so I was taking, there's often, TED speakers and TEDx speakers, they don't break the fourth wall. Like they're up there talking. And I do that always from a stage. And so this was the first time I tried it in a TEDx talk. And so, because I did that I had them close their eyes and it was like, everybody closed their eyes and people got emotional. A couple of people got up and like had been crying. And so it was really emotional, but there was a point where I wanted audience feedback just to shout things out. And I planned, and I had 2 different people planted in the audience to shout things out just in case no one else shouted things out. But other people did shout out. So I was like, yes, I'm like, it worked. Like it all worked. It all worked really well. So
I love that. I love that you prepared mindfully, put little plants in the audience, but you didn't even need to fall back. Yeah. You had enough spontaneity and response and connection that you didn't even need to fall back. That's brilliant. Well, we've been enjoying this talk with Dr. Jennifer Gunsaullus. And before we go over to the final word of advice, want to let you know where you can actually go to watch these talks. You can go to our show notes page, BeTheTalk.com. Her TEDx Phoenixville, which is right outside of here in Philadelphia, is called Female Sexual Shame Hurts Us All, and we'll have a link to that talk. We will also have a link to Dr. Jenn's website. It is drjensden.com, Dr. Jenn with 2 N S, and den.com. We'll see how that is. I thought that would be a little smoother to actually read. But Dr. Jenn's den.com with the DR and 2 N on the Jen. And drjensden.com is the website. And in a moment, we will be back with Dr. Jenn Gunsaullus with the final word of advice for you, Talk Universe. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe with Dr. Jennifer Gunsaullus.
And you want this on sex or on speaking?
Can
I do both?
You pick.
Do I have time?
Pick one.
Oh, I want to do both.
Give us one of each. Breaking the mold.
I'll do them quick. So in terms of sexual shame, just because so many people have sexual shame, like the tool I used in all my work and clients and speaking is using mindfulness and guided mindfulness exercises. And I think that's amazing because that's where you really get present with the discomfort of it. And until we really sit and breathe through the discomfort of sexual shame, we're going to keep getting blocked by it and shut down by it. And so if anybody's looking for a tool, and people can email me and I can send them for places to find resources in that. Second, in terms of speaking, this is a TEDx talk. This is a big deal. You want your video out there and you really want people to see it and like it and to spread and to, raise your name and your voice and your career. You cannot prepare enough for this. And I prepared the whole thing and the PowerPoint, and then I had 5 friends and colleagues over and I ran through a whole practice with them, got their feedback, wrote it down, reworked some of the slides. And like I said, I memorized it so much to the point that then I could make it my own and still be comfortably within the time frame. So,
Dr. Jenn Gunsaullus, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.